Skitter your way over here, my creepy crawlies. Your crunchy clown pal Sugar Pants has another gruesome game to play with you all. 1998's Bug Buster. A juicy jaunt about a small town besieged by bellicose bugs brimming with DNA-altering chemicals. And it also has Randy Quaid before he went completely bonkersville.
Try it. Live.
So let's move the stove and replace that cockroach-covered glue trap as we dredge up that sleaze docket to find out this movie's score. We have 10 dead bodies, 4 cups blood, 1 naked breast, 2 Star Trek cast members, harbinger of impending doom cliché, cat jump scare cliché, car failure when in a rush cliché, Tom Peepery, saxophone millipede ingestion, millipede popcorn, 1 bug-infested leg, eye socket emergence, nostril emergence, 1 explosive trip to the bathroom, 1 flamethrower roasted lobster, 1 stabbed throat, 3 gunshots to the chest, 1 giant roach fist fight, 1 really fucking lame and undeserved twist, and Katherine Heigl covered in roaches. A scene lots of her former co-stars have imagined, I'm sure. Dickheads, Masturbators, and Greaseballs Pictures presents... We would begin our movie, but we have to delay so that the governor can tell us about how the prostitute he hired actually came on to him instead. Really, though, he's making a by-the-book speech about a recent jump in the bug population.
I am hereby ordering the spraying of the chemical pesticide thiathion.
Say, isn't that stuff made from unobtainium? Mr. Sulu, Dr. Hiro Fujimoto, objects to this announcement, saying that his study suggests the chemicals could have drastic side effects. But the governor trots out the old "what about jobs" fear-mongering to shut him up and ask what could be worse than that.
You have no idea.
Cut to Randy Quaid spending some quality downtime in his backyard. Here we see a commercial for General George, the over-the-top exterminator that you'll see at 4 a.m. against Ron Popeil infomercials.
Tell him the general sent you.
White trash rates from an army guy. Here is a penguin, don't know why.
Finally, the opening credits roll with spoopy, ominous clouds. Whoa! Julie Brown is in this? Oh, it's downtown Julie Brown. Boo! Now it's 13 years later and Katherine Heigl is moaning orgasmically while cockroaches invade her bedroom. Oh, obvious dream was just a dream. Shannon is just a young lady whose family is moving to a new town. Dad was downsized and he's using this as an opportunity to chase his dream of running a small town hotel, as the stress of his old job was bad for his health. Oh yeah, the stress-free life of a hotel manager. Somewhere up the mountains, we see a horny pair of teens going for a late-night swim. The boy sweet-talks the girl by reminding her about the stories of swimmers getting their legs bitten off by lake critters. Suddenly, something starts a-nibbling, and the two make it back to shore to talk to the police. Officer Scotty, Sheriff Carlson, asks if they saw anything, but they say whatever it was never came above the water. Deputy Bo asks if it might have been the same thing that mangled the Johnson kid, but Carlson says he doesn't know. But he puts an off-limits order on the lake and says they'll start a search in the morning. Just then the Griffin family arrive at their new business, the Black Forest Lodge. Gil and Cammy are tickled pink, but sad sack Shannon is all mopey with the standard "all my friends are not here" cliché. Suddenly the sheriff shows up to explain to them that the lake is closed, and Gil isn't thrilled that the hotel's main tourist attraction is off the books before they even get started. But Carlson says it'll just be a few days until they find out what's going on. Next morning, Veronica is having her wound checked out by the town veterinarian, Dr. Lori, but she says she's never seen anything like it. She gives Veronica an injection, something she is not legally allowed to do, by the way, and sends a sample off to be tested. After she leaves, Carlson brings up the Johnson boy and how whatever happened to him was so bad it scared the old veterinarian right out of town. Carlson says it was like his flesh was rotting, but Lori reminds him that was 10 years ago and there's likely no connection. Sure. The sheriff and deputy are patrolling the lake when Bo falls in and is immediately attacked by something. Carlson takes a shot and actually hits his intended target. A small crowd gathers to see the catch. Gil asks if that means the lake can reopen, and the sheriff agrees. While there, Sharon meets Steve, but their meeting is interrupted by the town's old drunk coot, Judadiah, who warns everyone that they're doomed. Steve says Judadiah was a priest before his church was struck by lightning and burned to the ground, and he hasn't been the same since. The two kids make it to the nearby restaurant where Steve confesses he never knew his parents. His mom died shortly after he was born, and he was raised by the owner of the gas station. It appears a kiss is about to happen when Veronica shows up and introduces herself as Steve's girlfriend. Shannon takes off and Steve says that was completely uncalled for. Then Veronica tells Steve she just saved him from a case of herpes or AIDS. Real nice girl, huh? Back at the vet, Lori is cutting open the toothy monster fish pulled from the lake and says they're usually in cold, deep water and that they rarely attack humans. Investigating its guts, she finds that it was pregnant and in a couple of weeks there would have been a lot more. She adds that she believes it was an isolated incident and shouldn't happen again, but the sheriff happily takes his leave. But that's when Lori finds an abnormally large cockroach in its guts. She gets on the phone and calls Dr. Hero. Wow, what a coincidence that the two know each other. Lori reminds him that she was a graduate student of his, and Hero remembers.
Oh, yes. Pretty blonde. Long legs. Nice chest cavity.
That's the one thing I love about watching older movies. Knowing what we now know about George Takei, this line is hilarious for a completely different reason than when it was written. She explains the incident, and Hero takes an immediate interest and agrees to take a look. Back at the hotel, Gil and Cammy are getting caught up with Norman, the hotel manager, who informs them that the hotel is fully booked up all the way through ski season. And that's when the evening's entertainment walks in. Trailer park trash. Can't wait. We then get a really shitty CGI image of worms crawling out of the lake for some reason. Shannon is upstairs brushing her hair when the storm blows open her window just in time for an angry cat jump scare. She comments about the black cat and a full moon and how all she needs now is a ladder to walk under. And it just so happens there's one on the porch. But don't mind that none, because here comes Judadiah to rattle off some more lunacy. And it's time for the evening entertainment.
I saw the ugliest woman I ever did saw. Face like a turnip and an underbit jaw.
Yeah, man, tell it how it is.
She was so damn ugly, so I got drunk and fucked her in my truck. Good night!
During the performance, Shannon goes all pouty-lipped. Steve notices and heads over to chat with her. He apologizes for Veronica and says that they aren't an item regardless of what she claims, then asks her to dance. That's when we cut to the saxophone to see some creepy crawlies slither inside just in time for the saxophone solo. And somehow this big-ass bug manages to slip through the narrow mouthpiece into the player, and he drops dead. Time for another Shannon cockroach dream. Next morning, Norman and Gil talk about the incident and ask if he checked for bugs, but none were found. Sheriff Carlson brings the dead musician to the vet for an inspection since it'll be quicker than sending him off to the coroner. He unzips the bag to find the body crawling with bugs. Laura calls Hero and says she thinks he was killed by bug larvae. Hero says the sample she sent him appears to be a common cockroach, but its DNA would suggest it's a completely new species. What that means, neither of them knows. Steve and Shannon are shooting pool, and he asks her if she'd like to go to the movies with him that evening. She agrees, and we jump to her bedroom, where she's watching another General commercial.
Call General George, Pest Eliminator!
Why is it every time he delivers that line, I hear...
Fred Garvin, male prostitute.
At the movies, we're watching some classic Vincent Price, but Shannon is already freaking out and wants to leave. Shannon reaches into the popcorn and pulls on something long and slimy. Oh, don't worry. Steve didn't do the old hole in the bottom of the popcorn bag trick. It's just full of bugs. She then notices the couple behind them aren't having a great time, and we cut to the media frenzy headed up by a really annoying Katie Cunning. She tries to wrangle an interview with the next of kin of one of the dead, and the law intervenes. Lori notices the jar of fish eggs is growing much faster and larger than normal, and wonders if there's a link between the cockroach found in both the fish and the band member's corpse. Veronica rolls up to bother Steve at work, but he again shuts her down, and she drives off in a huff. In Hero's lab, he's straining his Windows 98 computer by rendering a 3D image of the bug sample, and the computer informs him that there's no match for its DNA. At the sheriff's department, Carlson and Bo are grasping at straws trying to explain the bugs while they wait for the coroner's report to come back in. Bo suggests using a crop duster to bug bomb the whole damn area, and Carlson heads to the nearby airfield just as the pilot is about to take off. Gil and Cammy are chatting with Shannon about the future of the hotel. The ladies want Dad to sell the place as soon as possible and get out of town, but Gil insists that they're overreacting. Norman comes in to tell them the sheriff is doing a press conference about the incidents and turns on the TV. Carlson announces that cause of death is not yet determined, but that the larva found on all victims may be related. Because of this, he's ordering an immediate spraying of thiathion and that there's a 9 o'clock curfew to limit the amount of human exposure to the chemical. We then get another shot of worms crawling out of the lake in the 74th consecutive rainy, stormy night, apparently. Laura has fallen asleep on the couch in her office, and we see her jar of fish eggs glowing and squirming. Shannon's soaking in a bubble bath when the storm blows another window open. Only this time, Judadiah is getting his peep on. She throws on a bathrobe and arms herself with a curling iron. Hey, don't laugh. It worked in Slither. Next morning, Buck is talking to Steve about last night's spraying and how it gave him one hell of a headache. They watch the sheriff's car pull up to the vet's, where Laura is showing off her jar of eggs, which have developed into fully formed cockroaches and other bugaboos. She speculates that the eggs evolved into bugs and that the fish was simply the host. Carlson insists that they get rid of them and dumps them down the sink. Hero is inspecting his own bug that the computer insists is a larva. He speculates that if it was born of water, then it should survive in water, and dumps the roach into a large tank. It does the backstroke for a while before sinking like a stone. Steve gets a phone call from Shannon, who asks if he can come by later that night. Back at the sheriff's office, Bo is putting pins in a map to represent all the attacks to see if there's any pattern. He then tells Carlson about Judadiah's peeping, but the sheriff says they'll have to wait until he actually does something before they can pick him up. I don't know, straight up catching him staring through the bathroom window isn't enough? Time for another CGI worm shot that still doesn't tell us shit other than it rains every fucking night in this town. Shannon's having a shower with a delightfully transparent curtain, and it appears old Peeper Creeper is watching through the window. The phone rings and Shannon runs for it, but no one's there. She hangs up and the line rings immediately, but this time it's Steve to tell her he's running late, but he's on his way after running an errand. The Griffins are hanging out in the empty lobby as having an act that literally died on stage hasn't been great for business. Gil says the sheriff told him about another party who has offered to buy the lodge. Shannon is thrilled at the idea, but Gil says he'd be selling at a substantial loss. Steve's errand takes him to Veronica's house, where she's not doing very well. She's got sores and lesions all over her skin. He insists that they see a doctor, but she says it's just a 24-hour bug or something. She winces in pain and admits she thinks her leg bite is infected. Steve takes a look and immediately freaks out, and Veronica falls over in pain, showing a horribly blistered and weeping thigh. Meanwhile, Shannon's throwing a fit over Steve standing her up and tells Dad she's glad he's going to sell because she can't wait to be back home. And we're going to take a time out here to explain why this line is fucking stupid. At the beginning, they said that Gil was downsized, which is why he's taking a chance to chase his dream of owning a hotel. So I'm assuming that means they sold off the house they used to live in, probably to have the down payment for the hotel at all. And even if they didn't, average people like the Griffins don't just keep backup property when the plan is to start a new life somewhere else. Also, Dad was fired! He didn't quit, he was fired! Fired employees generally don't just go back to the office and get rehired, especially in a company that's downsizing. Never mind the fact that the job was affecting Gil's health. So why do you just automatically assume you're going back anywhere? Especially since Gil is only going to get 20 cents on the dollar for the hotel sale. Your ass is going into a worse situation in a smaller town with bigger dipfuck redneck neighbors. Honestly, you'll be lucky to not end up in Methville, Arkansas. Dad took a gamble and lost. He ain't the U.S. bank system or airlines, so no one's bailing his ass out. So you can wipe that fucking grin off your face, Missy, because your life is going to continue its downward slope for a while at least. And honestly, your ass deserves it for thinking that your papa should have to go back to a job that was killing him just because you're being a fucking brat about your situation. Yeah, the bugs and cockroaches are a major problem, but you were pissing and moaning long before they even showed up. Okay, back to the movie. And another fucking General commercial, apparently. Ugh. This running gag is getting pretty tiresome at this point. It's really not as funny as I think the movie wants us to believe it is. The folks decide to celebrate the pending hotel sale by getting nasty in the bedroom. Cammy reminds Gil to take his heart medicine first, and he pops a pill. We then see his bottle is infested with bugs, and apparently there's no blood in Gil's brain because he missed a really obvious red flag here. We then cut to Shannon's room to hear the cacophony of overzealous middle-aged humping. Thinking there's trouble, Shannon runs to help and gets an eye full of parental pounding. Immediately, we return to Veronica, who's oozing licorice from her face. Oh, wait, that's supposed to be bugs. The sheriff and deputy are on the scene with Steve, who says he called the medic over an hour ago, but the bugs just started hatching from inside of Veronica's body. And it's time for another cockroach-covered nightmare, for crying out loud. Oh, this one's real. Fortunately, Steve showed up just in time to vacuum Shannon. The next morning, Steve and Shannon catch each other up on their news, and she has Norman ring her parents' room as they haven't gotten up for the day yet. Unfortunately, no one answers, so they head upstairs with the room key and find two gooey, bug-covered corpses in bed. Oh good, another news report from the annoying Katie Cunning. And just like Fox News, gives a platform to the crazy fucks. But we give some actual exposition in the alert that all roads in and out of the town have been blocked to traffic. Laurie's watching the news and suddenly comes to the realization that all of the attacks come in the dark or near moisture. She calls the sheriff to tell him the details, and Bo says she's called the general, who's speeding his way towards the town now. Shannon and Steve decide to skip town but run into the blockade, complete with newly deputized shit kickers. They tell them no one's allowed to leave, but that they have orders to let the general in when he shows up. Meanwhile, at Hero's lab, the drowned cockroach has grown into a Godzilla claw or something. Steve is telling Buck that they aren't allowed to leave, just as a giant Humvee rolls up with the general in full military dress and hand grenade belt. Buck is all starstruck, telling him all about his own service in World War II before blowing ass all over the filling station. He excuses himself to the bathroom, and the general gets the details from Steve and Shannon. And I have to ask, why is he talking to two civilians when the deputy's the one who called him? Shouldn't he be seeking the authorities here? And we get some more toilet humor, watching Buck nuke the restroom. Steve and the general hear a commotion and kick in the bathroom to find a steaming, bug-covered Buck. The three take off towards the lake to show the general where it all started. He immediately notices bug tracks in the sand and deduces the bugs are amphibious and nocturnal, all without ever once needing to talk to Laurie or anyone else who's actually been in constant contact with the bugs. Meanwhile, Hero is calling Laurie to confirm the bugs are a mutant strain that once they get inside the host, they rapidly lay eggs that metamorphosize into adult bugs that lay more eggs, eventually forming a cocoon. Just then, the new creature bursts from its cocoon, stabbing Hero in the throat before he can finish his report to Laurie. Back at the lake, the general keeps speculating his findings based on very limited information before turning his flamethrower towards a random lobster. Okay, so you've already guessed that the bugs are amphibious, nocturnal, and come from the lake. Why the fuck would you eat anything from said lake?
What's dark and damp with bugs all over?
Is it Nicki Minaj?
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Laurie makes it to the sheriff's office to tell Bo that Hero is dead and insists they put a stop to all the bugs. She notices Bo's map and sees all the attacks are near the lake. The general starts heading down the road while Steve catches him up on the Johnson boys' fabled fate. But we get a new detail in that Old Man Johnson's mine didn't have any gold. The general smashes the gate towards the mine and heads inside. A bat flies overhead and the general hits it with his ray gun. Bo is speeding towards the mines with Lori, and the cruiser's engine dies at the base of the hill. But fortunately, there's a random saddled horse just waiting nearby. Oh, I love when a movie throws in conflict that's immediately resolved through no action by the characters. The two trot their way to the mine's entrance and see the General's Hummer already there. Down in the mines, the General's spidey sense kicks in just in time to notice the cockroach-covered wall.
Damn, I'm good!
A shadowy figure emerges and we see it's the sheriff.
Oh, it's you.
Why would he say this? The General has never met the sheriff before. And we also get Bo and Lori. What a coincidence that everybody meets up at the exact same fucking moment. The sheriff suggests that everyone gets out of the mine, but the General points out a wall of eggs squirming and glowing. But before he can roast them, the sheriff pulls his gun and tells him to drop his weapons. And we get a really stupid and cliche twist where the sheriff has been keeping the bugs quiet, knowing the mother bug would attack again. And he knew that when that happened, he could buy up the town for cheap and basically gain access to the mine. He then orders them into the shaft where all the eggs are kept. They refuse, and Carlson shoots Steve 3 times in the chest. Suddenly, a giant mosquito thing attacks and kills the sheriff, but sounds exactly like the rabbits in Don't Starve. The General blasts it with his cold spray, then switches to his flamethrower, which is currently out of fuel. Hope that fucking trash lobster lunch was worth it, asshole. So he switches to his handgun, but the mama bug is fucking Wonder Woman all of a sudden and blocks every shot. So naturally, it's time for a fist fight with the 7-foot-tall mutant bug. The General holds his own for a bit, then finally goes for the hand grenades. The mother bug steps on his wrist, preventing him from throwing the grenade, so he just drops it, blowing himself up. Unfortunately, all it does is piss her off, sending her screaming outside. Bo jumps on the horse, grabs the lasso, and takes off after it. He quickly whips a U-turn as the bug is now chasing him. The ladies watch helplessly when the General staggers out of the mine, and I honest to God don't know how much more of this I can fucking take. He pulls a rocket launcher from his Hummer, takes aim, and blows the mama bug to flaming bits before collapsing to the ground. Skip ahead some time, and Shannon catches up with Lori and Sheriff Bo, who are checking the lake to make sure the disturbances have ended. Jedediah makes one last crazy appearance, and Shannon hits the road for parts unknown. That is until a random giant bug claw reaches in through the side window and we roll the credits. There's not a lot of movies that end with me not having much to say. I'm kind of speechless after this one, so give me a moment. Okay. This was a pretty rough movie. It seemed like it just could never figure out what the hell it wanted to be. It's not funny enough to be a comedy, it's not scary enough to be a horror, and it's not cheesy enough to be cheesy. And it's definitely not so bad that it's good. Some of the effects were alright, but others were laughably terrible. This is definitely an example of a movie that expected too much from their CGI team, which is sad considering the practical effects were expected to carry a lot of the weight. A great example of this was the bugs exiting Veronica's face. I don't know how much those gooey blobs cost, but I have to imagine a physical makeup application of static rubber bugs would have been 1,000,000,000 times more effective than what we ended up with. As for the acting, Bugbuster offers a surprising number of known names. I showed the trailer to a friend of mine recently and she said, "Wow, there's a lot of people I recognize here." Most notably, Randy Quaid, Katherine Heigl, James Doohan, and George Takei. Ty O'Neill played our lovable but dim-witted deputy, Bo, but you probably recognize him from the second and third Mighty Ducks movies. Gil was played by Bernie Kopell, but you probably know him better as Dr. Adam Bricker in all 250 episodes of The Love Boat. 14 episodes of Get Smart, 31 episodes of That Girl, 9 episodes of Bewitched, and more recently, 3 episodes of Arrested Development, and the last Sharknado. Anne Lockhart played Cammy, but was also in 12 episodes of the original Battlestar Galactica, 23 episodes of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and Troll. Dennis Fimple, our crazy Judadiah, has been a regular face in 70s and 80s TV. Most horror fans will definitely recognize him as Grandpa Hugo from House of a Thousand Corpses. But a very pleasant surprise would be an actor that you didn't even see. The Bug Mother was played by none other than regular creature actor Doug Jones, also seen as Billy Butcherson in Hocus Pocus 1 and 2. Abe Sapien in Hellboy 1 and 2, as well as Chamberlain and Angel of Death in 2. Fauno and Pale Man from Pan's Labyrinth, the Ice Cream Man in Legion, the Bye-Bye Man in The Bye-Bye Man, the Amphibian Man in The Shape of Water, Baron Athanas in 7 episodes of What We Do in the Shadows, and he's still adding to his credits as of this recording. Well, with that in the books, it's time for me to take a nap and rest up for the next dismal dud waiting in the wings. The only question is, will the next episode be a step up or step down from where we stand? God help us if it's the latter. But until I greet you then, this is your old pal Sugar Pants. See you in your dreams.
I was seeing which insect would survive. The short, powerful one I call Tyson, or the tall, fast one I call Holyfield. Tyson just bit Holyfield's antenna.
Oh, I see.